Let's go beyond the connection. Welcome to the podcast today. We have a really special panel of experts today to talk about wireless first network infrastructure strategies and how you can't really grow today. In fact, you can't without deploying the capabilities of wireless first and the requirements that we have on today's network and taking advantage of all the things that our data and our networks can for our businesses. We have on Greg Davis. Greg, you are the CEO of Bigleaf Networks. And Bigleaf Networks is a company that is very focused on network infrastructure, wireless first, resilient, easy to use networks that we're going to explain a lot more about that because we're going to talk about how a wireless first network infrastructure strategy isn't a future play. It's actually here and it's up and running. And you have all kinds of clients that you're already deploying these technologies with today. Ajay Malik, you are a guru, I would say, in the industry. You started out many moons ago with Google, and you were in charge of deployment of their network infrastructure strategy internally and recommended wireless first strategies way back then. You actually have been involved in wireless and Wi-Fi networks before a lot of the compliance and standards were put into place. You were part of doing that. You've worked at companies and consulted in Cisco and Qualcomm. You've written a book on wireless and AI network infrastructure. So we're really glad to have you on today as well. What I would love to do is kick us right off and start out by saying that just to set the table here, the big wireless companies have put together a investment in wireless infrastructure that I think few of us really understand how big it is. It's the second largest investment from corporate America in America after the big five tech companies. In fact, since 2020, companies like AT&T and T-Mobile and Verizon, they've been averaging around $54 billion a year in investment into wireless technologies. That makes them the second highest investing industry in the United States. So right away, I think the table is set here is that there's a massive opportunity for business that is here today. And that's what we're going to talk about unlocking. So here's what I'd love to do. Greg, maybe if you wouldn't mind starting us off, and let's talk a little bit about the wireless misconception to get started.
Yeah. Hey, good morning, Steve. It's good to be here. AJ, good morning. Yeah, I think it's an interesting time to be in the business, and certainly we're watching rapid change, and really we have since 2018, 2019, but certainly accelerated during the pandemic. And it's really coming at us from all sides. You have an explosion in consumer applications that are driving more connectivity. You have the rise in IoT, and then you have the stability of these wireless networks, 5G, LTE, and Starlink, and their ability suddenly to be a legitimate mechanism for businesses to get connected and to do business on the internet. And so I think where we are today, I think the market remains a perception problem more so than a technical one out there in the industry. And that's what we're trying to drive home at Bigleaf on a daily basis, which is, hey, you can confidently operate your business on wireless networks, in a lot of cases better, but certainly in all cases much faster time to market leveraging wireless technology.
And AJ, I would love to hear you consult with enterprise companies every day. And so is this misconception, is this mid-market, is this startup, is this at the enterprise level? What are the key misperceptions about wireless technology that are holding back adoption today?
So the misconception, as Greg also said, it's a holdover from the early 2000s. All the technology we use is still new. And 25 years is not a lot of time. And 2000 Wi-Fi was like premature. It was just evolving. The security in many years, people will break and find a security loophole. And they will say, oh, now web is broken. Now WBA is broken. And then frequent dropouts. The handovers were not smooth. Speed was low. The world has changed. It's almost like the world. There was no AI before. There were no cell phones before, no iPhone before. Think like this. World has been evolving at a rapid speed. And we were at a very high latency dropouts. And now we are talking 9.6 gigabits per second in wireless. So it's just like old information. I hear from Chick-fil-A, it's a living proof. 2,800 locations because of wireless first model, they are able to expand. And that's what the fact is today. You know what? It's like there are some people with a lot of scars still talking about it. That's how I see.
It's interesting. There was a guest on the podcast that said it this way. He said, we're all living a wireless first life. We can't go through our day without using wireless. From the moment we get up and we check our phones, we touch base with the audience, we get our honey-do list, everything is wireless. Coming in across our routers, what we're watching on TV or we're consuming news. So it's almost like we've adopted this in our lives seamlessly. Is it that seamless to adopt in the business world? And so here's a very direct question. From your point of view, why you can't grow properly in business without a wireless first strategy? Let's start there.
All right, sure. Scalability. Scalability is the biggest driver. Businesses who deploy wireless first strategy, they can deploy 30 to 50% faster. You have to see like this. That's why people have to think they can, if they really want to grow. You know what? If you just want to sustain, maintain, and growth is not in your horizon, then I think it's okay, you know, what you have. But if you are really wanting to grow, 30 to 50% growth comes because of wireless infrastructure deployment. Similarly, like COVID, okay, in COVID has seen the highest in growth and people have understood wireless work. Everybody jumped to get Wi-Fi 6 access point those days. Everybody was growing and everybody understood deploying it. And the reason is that legacy wired infrastructure is actually legacy. It's actually a true legacy. It's there. Of course, there is wired behind wireless. I always say this. You know what? It's not that when I say Wi-Fi, it means wired is gone. No, wired is there. Wired is the wired which is coming to your server room, your IT room, your cable room. And after that, there should be no cables. It's just people cannot even operate. Like in COVID, people were taking calls, you know what? Making tea, making coffee, going, doing this, doing that, all around the home. Imagine that in that wired world. And now the same people are working in offices and you want to tie them up. And you know what the mobile office is, mobile desk space. I cannot even imagine how enterprise can even say that my employees should be connected on wired. I don't think that concept exists anymore. I think it's already wireless plus.
And Greg, to take that analogy from the server room out of wireless, the server room now in a multi-location business is in some other city. You've got endpoints. You might be a restaurant chain. You might be a bank. You might have all kinds of locations that don't have IT infrastructure, don't have a staff, and may even be in rural areas. Tell us a little bit about how you work with your clients to make sure that last mile, that connectivity, the first line of connectivity is wireless and has redundancy and mixed ISPs. Just tell us a little bit more kind of how that works.
So a lot of our customers, so my interest in this business really started back on the front end of the pandemic. We were deploying point of sale and payments technologies for distributed businesses and companies like Hungry Howie's and Jet's Pizza. They had lots of locations and very little. They run those businesses. I don't know how many people are in Hungry Howie's group, but I would suspect that they run that network with less than 3 people and they have 550 locations. So that becomes a very difficult thing if you have to do anything on the edge. And at the time, there was not a lot of businesses that seemed to be focused on that segment of the market, which from 2018 to today has mushroomed. And so what got me interested in Bigleaf was it really solves that problem, which is we need our edge, our endpoint location is getting far and away more leveraged in terms of the software that manages that location has left the store. And now, to your point, it's running out of a data center in another city, but the more likely it's running out of AWS, Google, or Microsoft Cloud. And that's how the most of the endpoint applications are consumed. Furthermore, use the pizza analogy. What they're worried about is staffing drivers. They're thinking about how do I get pizzas? They don't have the resources to have lots of network folks running around. So you have to be lightweight on the edge. So what automation does for Bigleaf, for us, And for our customers, it allows us to have a zero touch scenario to get, let's just say it's a Starlink and a 5G connection. And you can get a Starlink and a 5G connection pretty much anywhere right now. It's not a situation where you have to wait for a line to be provisioned. So we talked about Chick-fil-A. There's a lot of other folks out there. Think of Chipotle, a lot of forward-thinking restaurants that are endpoints, if you will, that are focused on time to market and speed. So what you need is the ability to be able to stand up a platform, be able to plug into that platform, a global core, such as what we have, and be able to access again, a 5G and a Starlink circuit, be able to bond those together, but be able to leverage those, be able to do failover and those kind of things immediately at the edge without having to roll trucks and deploy resources. And so that's the way that we work. That's the way that we work with our customers. And the adoption for that is we talked about Chick-fil-A and Chipotle. These are marquee mainstream companies that are using a wireless first strategy to maintain their growth rate. So the market's moving quickly. And I think at the core, what you have to have, these networks require intelligence, if you will, to make them work together and function. And that's where there's certainly other ones out there that are high quality, but companies like Bigleaf come in. You need a platform to take advantage of that. And that's one thing I would tell any business. The economies and the flexibility are available to you. It's a tad different than deploying a traditional wired network, but your applications are there. The economies are available. It's just a matter of finding the right ecosystem to go that you trust and go get connected and start taking advantage of it.
AJ, I would love to have your thought on something that Greg just talked about. The requirements for intelligence at the endpoint is only increasing dramatically. Like the example of a fast food restaurant, they have apps that promise delivery times, and they're trying to optimize for delivery times and making sure that the times that they're promising to their customers actually match what's happening in the actual kitchen itself, and managing operations at all kinds of different levels. You consult on a regular basis with some of the largest, not only fast food restaurant chains, but all kinds of different enterprises. Intelligence at the edge, is that something that you can even try to deliver with wired infrastructure, or does that have to? Like edge technology, Internet of Things, sensors that require data from, these are all things that lend ourselves to say we can't have a wired network infrastructure as our initial strategy. We have to have wireless. If you could help paint that picture for us a bit.
There is why wired systems cannot even fulfill what is needed. The sensors, the devices, they are not wired. Nobody is making them. In fact, making them wired is more expensive. Physically, cost-wise, it is more expensive for those devices. They have to be wireless. And wireless is the only smooth platform which can move from a local to outside. You know what? I move my laptop devices, the sensor from wireless to Wi-Fi to 5G or whatever. All that seamless transition is also there. Wired cannot justify. In fact, I want to say something even more. Like when I saw some reports, there was a Forrester report, wireless solutions see 25% less outages than wired. Think about this. People almost think wireless, because you know what, we have so much outdated beliefs in the state of Wi-Fi or wireless networks. Wireless systems have actually less tickets also. 35% less support tickets in wireless world than wired world. It's like people don't even realize it. People that, oh, really? So then there is somebody saying, no, we need to do wired. No, you don't. It's too many objections exist in the wireless world, and they are all, I say, outdated, or they are actually genuine misconceptions.
Yeah, that's so true, AJ. So one of the cool things, our user interface, it provides real-time comparison between, say, your Starlink circuit, your 5G circuit, your LTE circuit, and your wired circuit. So the proof really is in the pudding. And so whenever we're deployed alongside a traditional circuit, people are amazed at how often our system automatically routes over the 5G network, because at that particular time for that particular application, it's more performant. And I think that's a misconception. And then I think the other one that just is bananas is the amount of bandwidth that people think that are required, or that wireless can accommodate their bandwidth requirements for. Just take a standard 10-person office. At the most, that office is going to get to maybe 75 megs, maybe at max usage with 3 people on Zoom calls and people hitting cloud applications and a bunch of VoIP calls. And you can handle that, all of that over a 5G circuit. Again, a misconception. That will work itself out. We saw this, back to AJ's topic, we saw this in the adoption of mobile technology back in the late 90s and 2000 for those of us that are a little bit older. And then explosion. I think we'll see the same thing here.
One of the things that you two just put together that I think we really want to make sure we accentuate is you started talking about tickets. You started talking, AJ, about less downtime. All of that puts together, and Greg, I've been talking on the podcast with a lot of your partners and your customers. They see a very direct correlation to customer experience and how technology plays into customer experience for all of our clients, and how that's now the number one differentiator in business. It was a study that McKinsey did. They looked at over 400 different companies, highly profitable B2C and B2B companies, and they said that the number one differentiator today is customer experience. And I just didn't want to let it go, because what you guys were just talking about there is making sure that there's fewer outages, fewer tickets, the voice over IP that you talked about, Greg, there. So much of customer experience happens over a call. There's actually a trend in the contact center industry that there's more and more voice calls that are happening. So what we're talking about here affects every level of the business and how reliable it is.
But just going to add on what Greg was saying when he said that people have so much misconception. Okay, companies use Slack. Slack needs 0.1 megabits per second. Companies use Zoom. Zoom is about 3 megabits per second per user. Like the whole expectation that what you really need in an enterprise for your applications, completely off. People just don't know.
I would love to talk a little bit more about reframing the whole entire question around wireless and what can wireless do that wired can't. We started in on that conversation, but there's a whole AI conversation that we haven't gotten into. Greg, your technology has a very much a hardware and software component, a whole platform that is going to allow business to do tremendous things. So maybe, AJ, I'd love to start out with you and ask, what can wireless do that wired can't?
I think that's the best way to ask this question, because people traditionally ask, hey, can wireless do what wired does? What does wired do? Wired do nothing. Actually, wired is your bits transported, and which is the most important thing. But beyond that, wired cannot help. Wired cannot take experience to the edge. Each sensor, you know what, you want to collect the airflow from your HVAC, you need a wireless sensor. That's how it works. You know what, all sensors live in the wireless world. You do not have, and if you really want to have a connected experience, here you want to have optimized experience, personalized experience. Everything comes by having a sensor at the point of activity, point of action. A sensor at point of activity means you cannot have wired. Wired does stop. Wired does not go to the edge at that level. And that's the biggest thing. Wireless goes to the edge. Wireless goes to the point of action. It can collect information. It enables sensors to monitor remote diagnostics, whatever. Only wireless can do that. That is the message we need to really, people need to know that you cannot. Wireless goes to the edge. I think if people understand, that's the only way. And then the second thing is wireless is not in one flavor. Wireless can switch to a different flavor of wireless based on the availability, and it can work on either 5G network or Wi-Fi network or whatever network. Only wireless can do. So that's the biggest advantage. Wireless, you need it. Okay, it's a backbone network, but it should be treated as a backbone network. It's not the customer experience network.
That's so well said, AJ. I agree. And it's where all of the innovation is happening. It's happening. Well said. It's agile. You can go anywhere with it. It's best for mobile and remote deployments. And that's what we see.
And I would love to ask you, Greg, because there's a whole additional level of benefits here. Lots of times in a wired world, there's a lot of complexity to enhancements to a network. In the wireless world, things can be done remotely, things can be done automatically. There's less reliance on an IT team. And by IT teams, they don't want more complexity. They want it to be easier. They want it to be plug and play. Tell us a little bit about how you've adapted or created the Bigleaf solution and how it fits into that kind of a world where we need more IT support out of the edge without physical IT people and complexity.
Part of that is that we have architected and deployed a global core network that allows us to concentrate all the intelligence in our cloud. So there's not a lot of work that's required from an endpoint in order for it to get connected and on our network and receive in service. Because again, the intelligence sits, all we really need is our endpoint, our device, and an IP address. Our entire product, which I did not build, it was built by a guy named Joel Mulkey, our founder. He's still on the board. The product was architected in a cloud native way with microservices and built in a manner that would allow us to easily connect to other clouds, easily integrate. And we had a lot of work to do in the last 24 months to finish this up, but easily integrate into other services, and that was easy to deploy on the edge. And so there's really no configuration. This is another thing that accelerated in COVID. Some of it's about getting your technical resources and having trucks rolled, which if you think about a wired connection, some human has to wire it. And that in and of itself is a problem. And then if you think about having remote tech required at the edge, separate from the wiring element of it and structured cabling and pulling all of that, some human has to walk into that restaurant, that endpoint, that doctor's office, and people don't really want that. They want to plug it in and they want it to work. And that's the way that we work with our customers. In a lot of cases, the scale of the businesses, we've mentioned a couple of high volume QSRs here today, such as Chipotle, those businesses can't wait to roll trucks. They need a remote edge solution that's easily and quickly on network. Does that answer your question, Steve?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What I'm finding myself wanting to ask more and more here is you've clearly articulated, both of you, the reasoning, the business case for why it's here, why the infrastructure and the investment has been there, the technology is here today. I want to hear a bit about what's coming. And I know, AJ, you've written a book on wireless network infrastructure and AI. You have how many patents in the industry? I would love to hear your point of view on what is here today from an AI perspective and what's coming.
All right. This is my favorite topic. So I think one thing I want to say and I want to add, what does AI bring to the table? To anybody. It brings a journey, assisting, adapting, or to autonomous. AI helps you to assist with a lot of things, whether it's cars, whether it's a network assist tools so that you can support your network better. It helps you. The best thing it helps is adaptive experiences change, adaptive to the person, people. It just changes it so that the person, you get the best experience, personalized experience. And then autonomous, the self-driving car. And that's not different in the networking space also. The wireless space is with the AI, it's moving from something you manage to something assists you to manage, some things adapts to manage it for you, and something that is completely autonomous, a wireless network that runs by itself. And that's the beauty. That's what the AI brings to the table. AI reduces the help desk calls. That's the assist part. AI helps predicts and resolves the Wi-Fi issues, or that's the assist part. And then AI also helps the network to be quality of service automatically adjusted based on the people, importance, activity going on, and giving the best experience. That's the adaptive part. And then ultimately, any outage happening, any problem happening, and all the things which we just said in assisted, they are all happening together. It's like think of a group of AI agents working together, solving problems, and you do not need the traditional heads and hands. That's the biggest change happening. AI is transitioning that completely. I can tell you this without, and you know what? I will be only wrong because it will happen sooner than what I predict. Okay. But I don't think in 2030 anybody is going to be IT people managing the wireless networks, completely autonomous. And if networks are not autonomous by then, I think maybe world focus too much on wars. That's all.
Amen, AJ. We believe in that future as well. That's exactly what we're doing. So we're trying to layer in intelligence across the entire experience. Plug and play, set out, and self-healing optimization, if you will. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think that networks they're going to get a little faster, but they're getting a lot smarter, a lot more intelligent.
And Greg, today, smart automation is a part of the Bigleaf offering today. If you could explain to us a little bit about what that smart automation is, I'd appreciate that.
So think of it this way. So AI sees patterns, but how you act on those patterns and how acute and specific they are, that's automation. And Bigleaf is a highly automated platform. And so what we have the ability to do is not just understand what services are available and how performant those services are across an application stack at any given moment in time, but we also have the ability through automation, machine learning, and intelligence to be able to route that traffic from millisecond to millisecond over the most performant network. And once again, back to the point we were talking about, if you look at a fiber, a 5G, a Starlink, and a copper connection over through the lens of our user interface and see how they're performant, you would be surprised at who performs the best. And it's a little bit regional, but it's certainly changed. And all that is done through automation on our end. So we've essentially eliminated the need for manual network operations and policy based. Our software self-tunes continuously, and it does it for all customers at once. What I think I mentioned to you this earlier, where you think about artificial intelligence as the brain function, but automated network is really the nervous system for how information is moving around. And so that's what we bring to the table.
When you talk about that and redundancy and all kinds of, we all want more ISPs, we want more choices coming in, and that the failover, the smart automation you're talking about, do I feel that on the network when it switches over? And if we're switching over to another ISP, but I was relying on a static IP address from another, like, how does that work?
Yeah, so we operate off of a single IP, and we talked about the global core network. So when I say that there's no lift at the edge, there's no lift at the edge. So when a network is underperforming or if a network fails, we seamlessly, without policy, without change, would route that traffic over the next server. So I could cut one of the connections that I'm speaking to you with here, and you would lose no connectivity, nor would anyone in the endpoint be aware, unless you were looking at the endpoint, that something happened. That's when I'm talking about taking the edge out of it. That's having the intelligence to be able to make those changes, to be able to fail over without any engagement in the edge, without having to enter any information into the system. It just happens with us.
And AJ, I would love to know, because you're consulting on a constant basis with companies, how much awareness of that this technology exists, that this capability exists, or are you constantly in your meetings educating? Is that a big part of what you're doing so that people companies understand the capabilities that they have, that they can deploy today?
No, it is still a lot of education needed. And that's where the time goes. All these things everybody knows, assumes, imagines that they exist, but they don't know. And they want to hear, they want to see the demos, they want to feel it. Because you know what? It's like this, the same example, Tesla, the self-driving feature. How do you really believe in it? It takes time. Everybody knows. If Tesla, there is self-driving. But how many people really will just blindly believe in it and go for it? That's where the point is.
That's a really good analogy. Greg, go ahead.
What builds on that is that at every moment that anyone in an autonomous car comes across something and avoids a risk or, heaven forbid, gets in an accident, every other car immediately learns from that scenario. And the same thing holds true with network intelligence. And that it's one of the benefits of how we deliver service, and it's one of the benefits of intelligent networks. Every time something is rerouted, the network, the machines just get smarter and more intelligent on how to deliver a better Teams experience or better Zoom experience.
I have one last question because I want to make sure I'm cognizant of our time here, because we've talked about so much. So much education has happened just on this podcast alone, this episode. If there was one thing, one takeaway that you wanted the audience to have after listening to this show, AJ, I'll ask you first. What would that one takeaway be?
I want them to know that there is a resilience through redundancy. Wireless first models allow you to use multiple ISPs, satellite backups, failover routing without hardwiring. You can have so many options because you have to be connected and somebody has to enable that connection, and wireless is the only infrastructure that enables you to have that resilience.
Fantastic. Greg, I'd love to have your take.
I think I would want everyone to take away that wireless first isn't necessarily the future. It's now. With the right intelligence, the right amount of automation underneath, those networks can outperform traditional networks that require, to your point earlier, racks of gear, tuning, expensive circuits. And so I would say expect more from your network than you do today in terms of velocity and reach and stability. It's available and it's not very expensive. It's a really cool time to get connected. There's a lot of options. They're not very expensive, and you could do a lot with different vendors.
AJ, I cut you off with my last question, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to say what you're going to say.
Oh, no, this is totally fine. I was just saying it, right? Wireless is, I don't think it's a feasibility question anymore. It's proven. Now the thing is, how much wireless, how much redundant networks in wireless, how many options you want to keep your network going. Okay. I don't think it's wireless first is the question. It's who is my first wireless, second wireless, and third wireless, so that I continue being operational in event of downtime, because we cannot afford downtime.
Well, here's one thing that I know is going to happen. People are going to have questions to experts like you. Would it be appropriate if I gave out your LinkedIn profiles that people could reach out and ask questions?
Absolutely.
Anytime.
Please do.
Fantastic. Well, I just want to say thank you to everyone. The mission of this podcast is to bring different perspectives together from experts from all walks and all levels in leadership across the network infrastructure industry so that we could all learn. Like the education that you talked about, that is an important part of your consulting practice, AJ. That's a big part of the mission of this podcast too, is that we put forward and we educate ourselves as our peers in the industry. And I just wanted to say that if we all do that, that's like the rising tide that lifts all boats. And I think that you both did that in spades today. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank
Awesome.
you,
Well,
sir. Thank you for having me here.